2018 is coming to a close. There's been so many good movies this year, and now we have Vice, which was directed by Adam McKay. He also directed The Big Short, as well as some comedies like Step Brothers, Anchorman, and Anchorman 2. A lot of those movies I really like. The Big Short was one of my favorite movies of 2015. And now we have Vice, which follows a lot of the structure that was established in The Big Short. The Big Short seemed like a way for Adam McKay to relate to general audiences and say, hey, that big housing crisis that happened, the big recession, it's not as complicated as all the big thinkers make it seem like. I can help you bring it down to simplest of terms. And the same thing is done with Vice. I don't think the issues surrounding Vice are nearly as complicated as The Big Short, so there's not a scene of Margot Robbie in the bathtub explaining why Vice President Dick Cheney would be wanting to go into Iraq. There's nothing like that. And I'm glad for that. He doesn't follow exactly what was done in The Big Short, but this is sort of a spiritual successor. Christian Bale, of course, plays Vice President Dick Cheney. I was kind of surprised. At first, I thought he was only going to be playing him in his older state. He was put into makeup, he gained a lot of weight for the role, but he actually plays the character all the way back to 1963. He plays a younger version of Dick Cheney. You see him grow through the 70s and the 80s. He plays the role up until, I think it was 2012 when he got that heart surgery, so you get basically his entire life. While we focus on Dick Cheney, we also get a lot of other characters. We have his wife, Lynn Cheney, played by Amy Adams. We also have Donald Rumsfeld, played by Steve Carell. And we have other characters that show up. Eventually, we get the George W. Bush, played by Sam Rockwell. This movie is a dark comedy. There's a lot of scenes that are there that are played for laughs, but you also realize this is probably exactly how the situation went down. Adam McKay said he made the movie on accident. He started reading about Dick Cheney after some illness he had, and he started to learn about the guy and realize he's a really interesting and twisted dude. That becomes really relevant in this movie. Dick Cheney is not your typical antagonist or protagonist. He's just this mellow guy. He's a very uncharismatic guy. You would never think of him as being this manipulative, evil man, but that's really what the movie's all about now, isn't it? It's about how he took this vice presidency and basically used it to his advantage to take care of many of the issues that typically the president would take care of. The movie has a good explanation about modern policies and what the president can and can't do. How you can simply translate the Constitution to your liking and you can argue that in court. And the characters never go too far. There's never something said that comes off as unbelievable. Take House of Cards, for instance. I love the show, but over time there began to be plans and thoughts that would be said to the audience that I just didn't buy. I don't think a political leader would ever act the way that they do. I don't think they're that self-aware. This movie does a lot better with how they portray their characters. Dick Cheney is definitely in it for himself, but I also think he truly believes he's doing what's best for the people. He even has a very dark and scary monologue at the end of the movie where he basically explains, yeah, I did this to save you citizens, and he starts choking up about it. You can tell that this is what he had to do. He feels that he did what was best. Not only what was best, but he did the best. A lot of the people are pretty much unrecognizable. I did not know that Tyler Perry was playing Colin Powell. That was a surprise for me at the end of the movie. Sam Rockwell plays George W. Bush. He does a very good job. I kind of was wishing Will Ferrell would have just played George W. Bush. I mean, he's worked with Adam McKay before. He did the best and funniest Bush impression, but I guess it would have been too on the nose. Amy Adams does good work this time around, as she always does, but I'm guessing once Oscar season rolls around, she's going to get ignored again. Ever since The Wolf of Wall Street came out, there seems to be this trend of making narrative biopics in a documentary-like style where you have still images and narrations and archival footage. The Big Short took that and made it educational, and I think they should be showing that movie in economics classes. And now we have Vice, which tries to do the same thing, but I don't think the effect works as well. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if he's gonna make another movie like The Big Short, it's gonna be hard to top The Big Short. And he does his best. I think the editing, especially in the beginning 10 minutes, is pretty messy, and I was kind of questioning why they were doing scenes in that specific order, or why they were cutting when they were. But right after the opening credits show, they started getting their work back together. I think at times the movie could have been restructured a little bit differently. I think some stuff could have been cut out that wasn't necessary, but there's other stuff that I wish I would have learned more about. So it's a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to the editing. But by the second act, I was in. I was enjoying basically every moment. I love learning about history when also enjoying characters on the screen. And I think this movie is important for people to see. I think there's going to be people out there that are hoping it'll either focus more on Dick Cheney or it'll focus more on just the events. And the movie seems to be flip-flopping between the two. Sometimes it'll focus solely on Dick Cheney, but other times it's like, hey, it's 9/11, now we're going to talk about the American culture at the time. We're going to talk about how policies were enacted, what the government did, and not really focus on Dick Cheney. But a lot of that is based on the impact of Dick Cheney, so it is important to tell. I'm glad Adam McKay is continuing to make movies like this. I'm hoping he'll do some more modern history movies in the future because it is sorely needed. I'll be giving Vice 4 out of 5 stars. So what'd you think of this review? Do you think Vice is better or worse than The Big Short? Or are you a fan of Adam McKay doing this? Or do you wish he'd just go back to straight up comedy? Leave a comment down my video, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching the video. A special thanks to Movie Johnson, Ryan, and Lucas for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like to be like them and get exclusive access to content and blogs and even request reviews monthly, please click on the Patreon link, and thanks for your support.